Hello and welcome to my video on Restoration Druid raid healing. I'm going to talk specifically in this video about raid healing because Mythic Plus is a very different setup and a very different rotation. So we're going to just keep it dead simple and make this video specifically about raid healing. We'll start off by talking about add-ons. Some people like to use LBY, some people like to use mouse over macros. I like using this kind of an older add-on that a lot of people used to use. It's called HealBot Continued. It's basically HealBot. If you're not familiar with it, you basically get everybody in your party will show up in this bar instead of being up on the left here. And you can move this pretty much anywhere you want. You can make it so that when you set a focus, that also shows up somewhere else. So that's useful for different things. Like if you need a head of boss reading to heal, it's useful. But the most important thing about this is it tells you when you hover over a character in your list here, it tells you what their health is, it tells you how much mana each spell you're going to cast is, and you can basically bind everything to your mouse and one or two keys. So for example, on my just normal left click, I got Rejuve. If I switch over to Shift plus left click, it does Swift Mend. If I do Control left click, Nature's Cure. If you have a lot of different healer classes, this is really helpful because I have one of everything. So having this is really helpful for making me remember where things are because I tend to keep the same kind of heal on the same buttons on the mouse. So it becomes very uniform and much easier for me to remember all the rotations. So that aside, use whatever add-on you want. As far as weak auras go, I've got this weak aura down here, and you'll understand why I have these things when we start going over the rotation. But if you're interested in having this, it's mana and then some of the more important buffs that you would get or cooldowns and abilities. So this is useful, and if you're interested in this, let me know in the comments. I'll go ahead and post that for you. While we're talking about that though, treat the subscribe button like a feast. It's free to click. You get a free intelligence buff from it, maybe. Primary stat. It's probably just intellect. I'll be honest, we're all mages, right? So go ahead and click that. But back to this, we'll talk about talents now. So Druid, typical standard Druid talents, you can play with this a lot. There's not really anything set in stone other than you want to make sure the healing talents are fully picked up here on this center column. Other than that, make sure you get Innervate. Nature's Vigil is really good to give you a little bit of extra damage on things. And then short of that, you can switch between Wild Charge or Tiger Dash here. You can Soothe is useful for Mythic Plus, really. It's not useful that much for raid, but you do need it to get to Stampeding Roar, which is really, really useful. You'll probably use that more than any other movement thing in raids because it makes the whole raid move very quickly. And having it cool down here, or cool down faster, is also extremely useful. You can also spec down this side here to get Incapacitating Roar or Mighty Bash to either do a stun or an AoE incapacitate. Both those things have their uses, but you'd also want to look into Well-Honed Instincts if you die a lot because you don't heal yourself or you don't remember that you have Renewal here. So Renewal is great because you can use it on demand whenever you want. That's only a minute and a half cooldown. Well-Honed Instincts is great because if you're forgetting to heal yourself, it's going to be there to keep you alive. It'll get you back up a little bit. But, for the most part, keep most of this the same, but you can kind of work your way into those other things. Now, on the restoration side, you want to pretty much keep all these things. The most important things are Nature's Swiftness is huge. The Tranquility is also quite important. All of these wild growth buffs are very important. The clear casting is helpful for a lot. Nourish is absolutely critical. Reforestation is critical. Convoke is critical. Efflorescence is. The Spring Blossoms, huge. And Soul of the Forest, also very important. That will give you this one to explain this to people. If you don't already understand this concept, you should never be casting wild growth unless you've casted Swift Mend right before it, because Soul of the Forest will cause basically your next wild growth or rejuvenation to heal for either 150% or 50% more, which is massive. So very important to do that. Basically Swift Mend on cooldown as you're getting ready to ramp up into things. The only other thing to think about is germination. You don't necessarily need it, but it is very helpful because essentially you can put more hots on things and that will stack with your mastery bonus, which is called harmony. Yeah, harmony. So harmony, essentially, the more hots you have on people, the more healing you get done. So the more hots I have on myself, the more healing I will get from like rejuvenation. So normally rejuvenation, $23.99. If I cast like wild or regrowth on myself plus rejuvenation, rejuvenation goes up to $26.42. If I throw germination on top of that, $28.86, and you know that's the way that works. And I think it gets a little bit weird sometimes. It doesn't always buff. Like, you'll see regrowth here is actually healing for more over time. So it's kind of strange, but it all works out. Key thing is you want to get your hots out on everybody, because the more hots you have on people, the better healing they will get. And always make use of this right here, this clear casting state. Whenever that's available, cast your regrowth on whoever's low or on a tank or somebody you expect to take damage, because it will heal them instantly when you cast it, but it will also give you a nice hot on that person as well. So typically the way the rotation works, now that we're finally into it, is you want to essentially keep building towards a ramp. And the ramp is essentially, you're going to use Swift Mend to consume a hot off somebody. So there we go, there's one. Now you'll notice here, that gives me one stack of the reforestation here. Once we get to the third one of these, this will give us our tree form. So, oh, and like I said, every time you cast, let's see what went off. I think I got wild growth off with the Swift Mend. We'll see on the next one. But essentially, you're gonna basically put hots on everybody in the raid. Try to get germinated up to if you can. Don't, make yourself go out of mana for no reason. But, spread hots around as best as you can. And then use your clear casting whenever it's available. And then you're going to want to keep hitting Swift Mend and Wild Growth. Wild Growth is going to throw up a good-sized heal. Yeah, so with Soul of the Forest, it went up to 24.47, so that's a big boost in the healing done by it. But, yeah, so you want to keep on doing that. And also, keep your efflorescence around basically where everybody's kind of stacked up the most. The more your raid stacks, which a good raid and a good raid leader will make sure everybody's kind of in the same area, unless there's like a thing they need to spread for. But for the most part, people should be grouped up pretty close, and your efflorescence will help. If you have the 3-set bonus, you also get a buff to your wild growth, because every time efflorescence crits, it gives you a stack of critical growth, which is, again, big for your primary thing there. Now on your third Swift Mend, you're going to cast Wild Growth. You're going to hit Nature's Swiftness, and then you're going to hit Convoke. Now, why did I do all of those things? Oh, and then finish with a Flourish. So why did I do all those things? Well, Nature's Swiftness, if you read the tooltip here, it essentially causes many of your spells to instant cast, but most importantly, it increases your regrowth healing by 100%. So when you cast Convoke, all of the times it casts regrowth, which it'll generally cast it at least once. Every time you cast regrowth, it's going to be buffed. So it's going to heal more initially, as well as get a bigger hot. And on top of that, at the end of all of this, you'll have a free boosted regrowth as well. Now, if you don't believe that that's how that works, that's fine. I'll prove it to you. So we'll clear off all the spells here. We'll cast regrowth and see how much it heals for. So we got about, on a critical, healed for 29,500 roughly. Let's see if we can not crit. There's another crit. I want to not crit, so about 30,000 for a crit. All right, so normally about 14,784. So we'd say about 15,000 for a non-critical heal from regrowth, and about 30,000 for a critical heal off regrowth. So we'll get our Swift Mend going. Actually, we don't even have to do that. I don't need to get in the tree form for this. We're just waiting for Nature Swiftness. So we'll just hang out. While we're doing that, don't forget to always use your Mark of the Wild buff, because yeah, super useful, very helpful. And yeah, don't leave home without it. As far as Nature's Vigil goes, basically use that on cooldown. Particularly if you can save it for when you have a big ramp coming, that would be ideal. But Nature's Vigil does a really great job of just putting in extra damage without you having to do anything other than heal. So it's a very useful talent to use. Alright, so we got Nature Swiftness off cooldown, we've got Convoke Spirits off cooldown. So let's keep a look here. So we're going to do Nature Swiftness and we're going to do Convoke, and we'll see how much our regrowths heal for. Alright, I think I saw one regrowth somewhere. Alright, so here we go. So this was a normal regrowth cast during Convoke. Was not crit, and it healed for close to 29,000. So that's about what you would expect if you were doubling the normal heal. So yes, it does in fact work that way. And I don't think we got any other casts of it off during that Convoke. Yeah, it looks like it only casted it one time, from what I can tell. And fact check true. Yeah, so it only did the one cast, which is fine, not a huge deal. But remember, we also still have the free cast afterwards. So there we go, another one that is double healed and instant. So huge amount of healing that'll go out when you do that ramp correctly. Now, the other thing that we're doing here at the end of that is Flourish. That does some other really useful big stuff for us. And I'm just going to go ahead and get myself primed up for another Incarnation Tree of Life, just to point everything out. Now, if you have the set bonuses from the tier set here, Efflorescence will increase your it increases the crit chance of a lot of things, and whenever Efflorescence critical heals, you get a stack of Wild Growth, and your Life Bloom critical heals reduce the cooldown of Nature Swiftness. So make sure you're putting Life Bloom up whenever it's down on somebody. So like if the tank doesn't have it, just go ahead and put it on the tank. Usually that's the best way to do it. Unless you know somebody tends to stand in things and take a lot of damage, you can put it on them as well. That is also helpful. But looks like we're ready to do a ramp again. So just to show you the general how things heal very well, and probably the most powerful ramp and cooldown that you can do is essentially put all of your hots out on people that you can, everything that you can get, and now we're going to hit Tranquility, and we have to be quick about this because as soon as Tranquility gets its 5th stack up, you're going to immediately cast Swift Mend, cast a Wild Growth, Nature Swiftness, then Convoke, and as soon as that's over, Flourish. And now you'll see that I've got all these hots rolling. Tranquility healing for 4,000 a second, Swift Mend healing for 6,000, Wild Growth is healing for 3,000 every 0.8 seconds, Regrowth healing every 3,000 every second and a half, Germination and Rejuve both were healing for almost 4,000 per second, every 2 seconds. That is a ton of healing, and when you use Flourish, it's going to increase the effect or the time of all the heals and the rate of the healing by double for 8 seconds. So all of those things were healing super fast. You didn't get to see it all because I wasn't quick enough to kind of capture it all. But basically, if you do that with your raid, no one's going to die. And you're going to get a huge burst in healing. So that's really your most powerful ramp. You're not going to be able to do that more than once every 2 minutes or so, because Tranquility is a 2-minute cooldown, Flourish is a 1.5 minute cooldown. So generally, you might be able to do that in most raid fights, probably twice at most, because you're going to do 1.5 plus 1.5 gets you to 3, and then your Tranquility cast, you'll probably do it on the 6 minute mark roughly. So, and of course, Nature Swiftness being a 1 minute and Convoke being a 1 minute cooldown, these two you can always do together. You can't always do Flourish together though. So really a lot of Druid healing, the majority of it is really just focusing on knowing when damage is coming. That's especially true for when you're looking at when to use defensives. So you can put something like Iron Bark on a target to reduce the damage you're taking by 20%. So if you know somebody's going to take a bunch of damage and they're getting low and you don't have time to really heal them up, you can throw Iron Bark on them. Generally, I use it for the tanks when I know they're about to take some big hits. But for the most part, that's how it's done. Keep in mind, Ysera's Gift, this other talent here, anytime that you're at full health and you get healed or you take some healing, that healing is going to go to other people in the raid. So it's helpful to keep yourself at full as well. And that'll also make sure that, you don't die, because if you die, then you're not healing anybody else, obviously. So make sure you're using Renewal. That's a very helpful heal. And yeah, that's basically it. If you guys got any questions or have any comments that things that maybe you think I got wrong or things that I missed, feel free to put those down in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Maybe I can improve if I'm screwing anything up. But I've done very well by doing things this way, and I think everybody can do very well. It's a very, I wouldn't say brain dead healing rotation, but it is not the most difficult healing rotation by any means. And I think with a little bit of practice, just about anybody can do this. So get in there, get raiding, and hope you have a great day. Until the next time, like, comment, and subscribe again. Don't forget. But until the next time, I'll see you then. Try not to die.